"Stop. Look at her hands," the old billionaire whispered, his voice shaking in front of a room full of stunned faces. "That birthmark, that is my daughter's mark." And suddenly, the quiet maid standing in the corner was no longer invisible. The room froze as the old billionaire slowly stepped forward, his eyes locked on the maid's trembling hands. For 15 years, the most powerful man in the city had searched for his missing daughter. And now, standing in the corner of his own mansion, was a woman no one had truly seen before, a maid. A silent worker who cleaned floors, washed dishes, and kept her head low. But on her wrist was a small, crescent-shaped birthmark that had haunted his memory for a decade and a half. And in that moment, the world shifted. Because the truth about his missing daughter was not just unexpected. It was something no one in that room was prepared to face. 15 years earlier, the entire country had followed the story. Adrien Laurent was one of the richest men in the world. His company stretched across continents. His name opened doors that no ordinary person could even see. But none of that power mattered the day his 6-year-old daughter vanished. Her name was Isabella. She had soft brown hair, curious eyes, and a quiet laugh that filled the halls of their massive estate. One spring afternoon, while playing in the estate garden, she disappeared. No screams, no witnesses, no clues. The gates were guarded. Cameras watched every corner. The staff had worked with the family for years. Yet somehow, Isabella Laurent vanished as if the earth itself had swallowed her. Police searched for months. Private investigators searched for years. Rewards grew into the millions. But Isabella never came home. The mansion slowly became a quiet place filled with shadows and memories. And Adrien Laurent, the most powerful businessman in the city, became a father living with a silence that money could not break. 15 years later, the mansion had grown even larger. But it felt emptier than ever. Adrien was older now. His once dark hair had turned silver, and the deep lines on his face carried the weight of endless searching. Most people believed he had finally accepted the truth. But they were wrong. Every year, on the anniversary of Isabella's disappearance, he walked through the old garden alone. And every year he whispered the same words to the wind: "I will find you, no matter how long it takes." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, someone else moved through the halls quietly. Her name was Alina. She had worked there for 3 years as a maid. No one knew much about her. She arrived early. She left late. She spoke softly. She kept her head down. To the other staff, she was simply another worker trying to survive. But there was something unusual about her. Sometimes when she passed certain rooms, she would pause. Her fingers would brush the wall. Her eyes would linger on old photographs, as if something inside her recognized the place, even when her mind did not. Alina had no clear memories of childhood, only fragments. A garden, laughter, the smell of roses after rain, and a voice that once called her Bella. But every time she tried to hold those memories, they slipped away like mist. The orphanage where she grew up had found her wandering near a highway when she was about 7 years old. No identification, no family, no past. Just a frightened child with a crescent-shaped birthmark on her wrist. The caretakers had given her a new name, a new life, and eventually, a job. Alina believed that was simply her story, a quiet life shaped by forgotten beginnings. She never imagined that the mansion she now cleaned every day was once her home. The day everything changed began like any other. A charity gala filled the Laurent mansion with wealthy guests, polished shoes, and quiet conversations about power and success. Alina moved silently between tables, carrying trays and clearing glasses, invisible, just another worker blending into the background. At the far end of the room stood Adrien Laurent, older, slower, but still commanding the attention of everyone around him. He listened politely to business leaders speaking about investments and growth, but his eyes looked tired, because even surrounded by hundreds of people, he was still searching. Late in the evening, Alina reached for a heavy silver tray that slipped from her hands. The tray clattered loudly against the marble floor. Every head in the room turned. Alina quickly knelt to pick it up, embarrassed by the sudden attention. Asterisk her sleeve slid back, and for the first time in 15 years, Adrienne Laurent saw the mark. That small crescent shape, perfectly curved, exactly the same as the one on his daughter's wrist. The one he had kissed every night when she was a child. The one he had memorized during endless nights of grief. His breath caught. Stop. His voice cut through the room, shaking with emotion. Look at her hands. Guests turned in confusion. Alina froze as the old billionaire slowly approached her. His eyes filled with disbelief. That birthmark? He whispered, barely able to breathe. That is my daughter's mark. The room exploded into whispers. Security stepped forward. Staff exchanged confused looks. Alina stared at him, her heart racing. Asterisk I don't understand. Her voice trembled. But Adrienne Laurent's eyes never left the mark on her wrist. For 15 years, he had studied every photograph of his daughter, every detail, every memory. And now, standing in front of him, was a woman who carried the same mark. The same eyes, the same quiet presence. One of the guests laughed awkwardly. Sir, that is impossible. Your daughter would be 21. Adrienne finished softly. The same age as this young woman? Silence spread across the room. Then Adrienne spoke words that would later echo across the world. Sometimes the truth hides in the places we refuse to see. Elena's heart pounded. Images flashed through her mind. The garden, the roses, a man lifting her into the air while laughing, a voice calling Bella. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. I remember. A garden. Adrienne's face broke. The garden with the fountain. Alina gasped. The fountain with the stone birds? Gasps spread through the crowd. Because that fountain existed only inside the Laurent estate. A place no outsider could know. Asterisk, days later, DNA tests confirmed the impossible truth. Alina was Isabella Laurent. The missing billionaire's daughter? Kidnapped at 6 years old by a former staff member who later abandoned her during a police chase years later. She had survived, but her memories had been lost. And somehow life had carried her back to the very place she once called home. Not as an heiress, but as a maid, cleaning the floors of her own childhood house. The story spread across the world overnight. People were stunned by the strange twist of fate. But the moment that moved people most happened a week later. In the same grand hall where the truth was discovered, Adrienne Laurent stood beside his daughter. No reporters, no cameras. Just the staff who had worked there for years. Alina Isabella looked at the people she had quietly served beside for 3 years. Her voice was calm but strong. For years I believed I was invisible. But invisible people carry stories the world has not yet heard. She looked at her father, then at the staff. Respect is not about wealth. It is about seeing the humanity in the people standing right beside you. The room grew quiet. Some of the staff wiped away tears. Adrienne Laurent placed his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder and spoke a line that would later spread across social media across the world. The greatest treasures in life are not found with power. They are found with patience, hope, and love that refuses to give up. From that day forward, Isabella refused to leave the people who had worked beside her. Instead, she transformed the Laurent Foundation, creating education programs and housing support for workers across the country. Because she never forgot the years when she stood silently in the background, asterisk, invisible to the world. Years later, visitors to the Laurent estate sometimes noticed something unusual. The billionaire's daughter often walked through the gardens alone, her fingers brushing the roses, her eyes peaceful, because she had learned something powerful from a life that began twice. Sometimes the people we overlook are carrying the most extraordinary stories. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who changes everything. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from in the comments. Stories like this remind us that every person carries a hidden journey. And sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones the world almost forgets to see. Subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the quiet strength of the human heart.